The first email landed in her inbox at 6:47 a.m., and by the time she finished reading it, Sarah's hands were trembling so violently that her coffee cup nearly toppled off the desk. The subject line read simply, "Organizational Restructuring Announcement." She had worked for President Jameson for 15 years, rising from an eager intern to become his most trusted advisor, but nothing could have prepared her for what she was about to discover. As she scrolled through the message, each word hit her like a punch to the gut. Every single member of their team, 27 people who had dedicated their lives to serving under Jameson's administration, had been terminated effective immediately. The new president-elect, Michael Grayson, had decided that fresh perspectives were needed. Fresh perspectives. That's how he justified wiping out an entire legacy in one fell swoop. No warning. No consultation. Just a cold, impersonal email sent on his behalf by some faceless HR representative. Sarah sat frozen, staring at the screen as if hoping the words might rearrange themselves into something less devastating. Her mind raced back over the countless late nights, the sacrifices made, the battles fought together as a team. They weren't just colleagues, they were family. And now, without explanation or recognition of their contributions, they were being discarded like yesterday's news. Her phone buzzed incessantly beside her, pulling her from her daze. It was Emma, her closest friend on the team and head of communications. Before Sarah could answer, another call came through, from Mark, then Lisa, then Daniel. The group chat lit up with frantic messages, each more panicked than the last. "Did you see this? What do we do? This can't be real." Their voices overlapped in her head, echoing the same disbelief and betrayal she felt. She picked up her phone and dialed Emma first. The line connected after only one ring. "Tell me I'm dreaming," Emma said before Sarah could even speak. Her voice cracked, raw with emotion. Sarah didn't respond right away. Instead, she took a deep breath, trying to steady herself enough to sound calm, collected, anything but shattered. But when she finally spoke, her voice betrayed her. "I wish I could." By noon, the team had gathered in their usual conference room, though today there was no agenda typed neatly at the top of the whiteboard, no folders stacked neatly on the table. This wasn't a meeting sanctioned by leadership, it was survival instinct. 27 chairs scraped against the floor as everyone found their seats, though no one looked settled. Some fidgeted with pens, others stared blankly ahead, while a few buried their faces in their hands. The air was thick with tension, anger, and grief. Emma stood at the front of the room, pacing back and forth like a caged animal. "This isn't just about us losing our jobs," she began, her voice shaking but determined. "It's about everything we've built here. Everything we've sacrificed. Does anyone else feel like we're being erased?" A murmur of agreement rippled through the room. Lisa, usually quiet and reserved, raised her hand hesitantly. When Emma nodded toward her, Lisa cleared her throat. "I get why people want change, I really do. But this feels personal. Like none of our work mattered. Like we don't matter." Mark leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. His expression was grim, his jaw clenched tight. "Grayson didn't even give us a chance to prove ourselves. He didn't ask for input, didn't consider keeping any of us on board. He just cut us loose. What does that say about him?" The question hung heavy in the silence that followed. Sarah listened intently, her heart pounding in her chest. She wanted to speak, to offer reassurance, guidance, anything, but the words wouldn't come. Not yet. For 15 years, she'd been the rock of this team, the person everyone turned to when things got tough. Now, faced with the possibility of losing everything, she felt unmoored. Daniel broke the silence, his tone sharp and defiant. "We can't let this stand. We've given too much to walk away quietly. If Grayson thinks he can sweep us aside like we're nothing, then he doesn't know who he's dealing with." A chorus of murmurs erupted around the table, some hesitant, others fired up. Emma stopped pacing and turned to face the group. "So what are we saying? Are we fighting back?" The question lingered, unanswered for a moment. Then Sarah found her voice. "Fighting back isn't just about us," she said slowly, deliberately. "It's about showing Grayson, and anyone else who doubts us, that experience matters. That loyalty matters. That the work we've done here is worth protecting." Her words seemed to ignite something in the room. Heads nodded, shoulders straightened. Even those who had seemed defeated moments ago now looked ready to take action. Emma grabbed a marker and started jotting down ideas on the whiteboard: legal options, media outreach, petitions, protests. The brainstorming session became a flurry of activity, each suggestion building on the last. But beneath the surface energy, Sarah couldn't shake the nagging thought that Grayson hadn't acted alone. Someone must have advised him, or pushed him, to make such a drastic decision. Who stood to gain from dismantling their team? And why now, after all these years? As the meeting drew to a close, the team agreed on a plan of action. They would regroup tomorrow morning, armed with research and strategies. For now, they needed time to process, to prepare. As everyone filed out of the room, Sarah stayed behind, staring at the list on the board. Each bullet point represented hope, determination, resilience. Yet doubt still lingered in the corners of her mind. Who exactly were they fighting? And what lengths would Grayson go to in order to defend his decision? Michael Grayson paced the length of his newly furnished office, his polished leather shoes clicking rhythmically against the hardwood floor. The grandeur of the space, a stark contrast to the modest rooms he'd occupied during his campaign, should have filled him with pride. Instead, unease coiled in his stomach like a snake ready to strike. His eyes darted to the stack of resignation letters sitting neatly on his desk, each one bearing the signature of a senior staff member from Jameson's administration. He had expected resistance, perhaps even outrage, but not this level of organized defiance. "They're mobilizing faster than anticipated," muttered Rachel Chun, his chief strategist, as she scrolled through updates on her tablet. Her normally composed demeanor showed cracks of concern as she relayed the latest developments. Social media is blowing up with hashtags supporting the ousted team. Journalists are already sniffing around for comments. And according to our sources, they're planning a press conference tomorrow morning. Grayson stopped mid-stride, turning sharply to face her. A press conference? About what? Their little pity party. Rachel sighed, setting the tablet down carefully. "Sir, it's not just pity. They're framing this as an attack on institutional knowledge and experience. People respect them. They built that reputation over decades. You underestimated how deeply rooted their influence is." He bristled at the critique, crossing his arms defensively. "I didn't underestimate anything. I made a calculated decision. Fresh perspectives are exactly what this organization needs. Stagnation breeds complacency. Look where sticking with the old guard got us." His voice rose with each word, bouncing off the walls of the cavernous office. Rachel remained silent for a moment, letting him vent. When he finally stopped, breathing heavily, she spoke again, her tone measured but firm. "With respect, sir, you may have miscalculated the optics. Terminating an entire team without warning sends a message, not just to them, but to everyone watching. Right now, you look impulsive and dismissive, not visionary." The weight of her words hit him like a freight train. For the first time since taking office, doubt crept into his mind. Was this how leaders were supposed to feel, constantly second-guessing themselves, perpetually on edge? He sank into his chair, rubbing his temples. "What do you suggest, then? We can't backtrack now. That would make me look weak." Rachel leaned forward, lowering her voice conspiratorially. "You don't backtrack, you pivot. Acknowledge their contributions publicly. Frame your decision as part of a broader transition strategy rather than a wholesale rejection of their work. Offer select positions to key members of their team, ones who align with your vision. Show flexibility without compromising your authority." Grayson frowned, considering her advice. It sounded reasonable enough, but something about it rankled him. Compromise felt like surrender, and he hadn't clawed his way to the top by backing down. Still, the growing backlash couldn't be ignored. If left unchecked, it could undermine his credibility before he even had a chance to implement his agenda. Before he could respond, his assistant knocked lightly on the door and entered, holding a manila folder. "Sir, urgent update," she said, placing the document on his desk. Inside were copies of emails exchanged between members of the ousted team. One particular thread caught his attention, an exchange detailing potential legal action. "They're threatening lawsuits," he exclaimed, his voice rising in alarm. "On what grounds?" Rachel scanned the documents quickly, her brow furrowing. "Wrongful termination, breach of contract, defamation, the works. These aren't idle threats, either. They've retained high-profile attorneys. This could escalate quickly. Grayson's hands gripped the edge of his desk, knuckles whitening. His vision blurred as panic set in. How had things spiraled so far out of control so quickly? He had envisioned a smooth transition, a clean break from the past. Instead, he was staring down the barrel of a PR disaster and a potential legal nightmare. We need damage control. Now, he barked, standing abruptly. Call our PR team. Get them working on a statement. And find out who's advising them legally. We need to know what we're up against. Rachel nodded, already dialing numbers on her phone. As she stepped out of the office to coordinate the response, Grayson slumped back into his chair, feeling the weight of his decisions pressing down on him. The faces of the people he dismissed flashed in his mind: Sarah, Emma, Mark, Lisa, Daniel. He hadn't known them personally, but he'd seen their names on reports, heard whispers of their dedication. Had he truly misjudged them? Or had someone else orchestrated this rebellion, using their grievances as fuel? His gaze drifted to the window, where the city skyline stretched endlessly beyond the glass. Somewhere out there, his opponents were plotting their next move. And for the first time since assuming power, Michael Grayson wondered if he was truly prepared for the fight ahead. Sarah stared at the blinking cursor on her laptop screen, willing the words to come. The press release they were drafting needed to be perfect, clear, concise, and impossible to ignore. Every sentence carried the weight of their collective frustration, their shared history, their demand for justice. But as she typed, her thoughts kept drifting back to the early days of her career, when she had first joined Jameson's team fresh out of college. Back then, she had been wide-eyed and idealistic, eager to prove herself in a world that often dismissed young women like her. Over the years, she had grown into her role, earning respect not just for her intelligence but for her unwavering commitment to the mission. Now, sitting in the dimly lit living room of her small apartment, surrounded by notes and scribbled outlines, she felt the enormity of what they were facing. This wasn't just about saving their jobs, it was about preserving the values they had fought so hard to uphold. Loyalty. Integrity. A belief that experience mattered, that the lessons learned over decades could guide them through even the toughest challenges. Those principles had sustained her through sleepless nights, heated debates, and moments of doubt. And now, they were under attack. Across town, Emma sat hunched over her dining table, her phone pressed to her ear as she spoke with a journalist friend. "Look, I know it sounds dramatic, but you have no idea what this feels like," she said, her voice trembling with barely contained emotion. It's like someone walked into your home, trashed everything you love, and told you it was for your own good. Except it's worse because this wasn't just a job, it was our life's work." Her friend listened patiently, offering words of encouragement, but Emma could hear the hesitation in his tone. She knew what he was thinking. Was this really worth the fight? Would the public care enough to rally behind them? Doubt gnawed at her, but she pushed it aside. She couldn't afford to second-guess herself, not now. Not when so much was at stake. Meanwhile, Mark paced the length of his basement office, his mind racing as he reviewed the legal documents they had compiled. Each clause, each precedent, represented a lifeline, a way to hold Grayson accountable for his reckless decision. But as he flipped through the pages, he couldn't shake the feeling that this battle was about more than just winning. It was about proving that institutions mattered, that continuity was vital, that progress didn't have to come at the expense of everything that came before. Lisa, ever the quiet observer, sat cross-legged on her couch, scrolling through social media posts flooding in from supporters. Hashtags like #StandWithJameson's team and #ExperienceMatters trended across platforms, accompanied by heartfelt messages of solidarity. Strangers shared stories of how the team's policies had impacted their lives, how programs they had championed provided opportunities, saved businesses, or changed communities for the better. Reading those comments brought tears to Lisa's eyes, not just because of the overwhelming support but because it reminded her why she had chosen this path in the first place. It wasn't about glory or recognition, it was about making a difference. And then there was Daniel, who had always been the firebrand of the group. He stood on the balcony of his apartment, cigarette in hand, staring out at the city lights. His mind replayed every argument he had lost, every compromise he had begrudgingly accepted, every moment he had swallowed his pride for the sake of the greater good. Now finally he had a chance to fight back, not just for himself, but for everyone who believed in the power of perseverance. Lighting another cigarette, he exhaled slowly, savoring the burn in his lungs. "Let's see how Grayson likes playing defense," he muttered under his breath. As the hours ticked by, the team worked tirelessly, fueled by adrenaline and determination. They coordinated logistics, drafted statements, reached out to allies, and strategized their next moves. Despite the chaos, there was an undeniable sense of unity among them, a bond forged not just by shared adversity but by the knowledge that they were fighting for something bigger than themselves. But as dawn approached, exhaustion began to set in. Sarah leaned back in her chair, rubbing her temples as she reread the final draft of the press release. It was strong, compelling, and unapologetically honest. Yet, as she clicked send and watched the email disappear into cyberspace, a wave of uncertainty washed over her. Would it be enough? Could they truly take on someone as powerful as Grayson and win? The question lingered unanswered as the first rays of sunlight filtered through her window, casting long shadows across the room. Outside, the city stirred to life, oblivious to the storm brewing within its corridors of power. For Sarah and her team, the battle was only beginning, and the stakes had never been higher. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, the city buzzed with anticipation. News outlets scrambled to cover the unfolding drama, reporters camped outside Grayson's headquarters, and social media platforms exploded with speculation. The press conference loomed large, a ticking clock counting down to a confrontation that promised to shape the narrative for weeks, if not months, to come. Inside Grayson's office, tensions ran high. His PR team worked feverishly, crafting responses designed to soften the blow of his earlier actions while positioning him as a leader bold enough to embrace change. Yet, cracks began to show in his carefully constructed facade. Whispers circulated among his inner circle about anonymous leaks suggesting internal dissent within his ranks. Senior advisors quietly questioned whether sidelining seasoned professionals had been wise, fearing the repercussions of alienating influential figures both inside and outside the organization. Meanwhile, Sarah and her team convened in a borrowed conference room at a local community center. Surrounded by maps of the city, legal briefs, and hastily assembled talking points, they fine-tuned their approach. Each member brought unique strengths to the table. Emma's media savvy ensured their message resonated clearly, Mark's legal expertise fortified their stance, Lisa's meticulous research backed every claim, and Daniel's fiery rhetoric galvanized supporters. Together, they formed a formidable coalition, united not only by shared goals but by deep-seated convictions about justice and fairness. Their strategy extended beyond mere retaliation. They aimed to expose systemic issues plaguing leadership transitions, advocating for policies that balanced innovation with respect for established wisdom. By framing their struggle as emblematic of broader societal concerns, they hoped to spark conversations about governance, accountability, and the value of experience in shaping sustainable futures. Yet, as preparations intensified, personal stakes heightened. Sarah wrestled with memories of late-night negotiations and triumphant victories, wondering if the cost of this fight would outweigh the benefits. Emma grappled with guilt over dragging loved ones into professional turmoil, questioning whether her passion blinded her to collateral damage. Mark agonized over ethical dilemmas inherent in leveraging legal threats, torn between pragmatism and principle. Lisa navigated waves of anxiety, acutely aware of how public scrutiny might affect mental health. And Daniel confronted fears of failure, haunted by visions of defeat overshadowing years of hard-won progress. Amidst these swirling emotions, alliances shifted subtly. Former adversaries reached out, offering unexpected support. Community leaders rallied behind the cause, amplifying calls for transparency and inclusivity. Even some within Grayson's orbit expressed private sympathies, hinting at fractures beneath his seemingly impenetrable armor. As the day wore on, both sides braced for impact. Grayson clung to remnants of control, issuing carefully worded statements aimed at diffusing tension. Meanwhile, Sarah's team finalized arrangements, rehearsing speeches and coordinating logistics. The stage was set for a clash of ideologies, personalities, and ambitions, a pivotal moment destined to redefine perceptions of power, privilege, and purpose. In the quiet moments before stepping into the spotlight, reflections surfaced. What did victory truly mean? Was it vindication, restoration, transformation? Or something deeper, a reaffirmation of values, a testament to resilience, a beacon of hope for others navigating similar storms? With cameras rolling and audiences tuning in worldwide, the scene unfolded, a tapestry woven from threads of courage, conviction, and collective will. Words spoken carried weight, silences held significance, gestures conveyed volumes. As narratives collided and truths emerged, the essence of humanity shone through, flawed yet fiercely determined, fragile yet profoundly resilient. And thus, amidst uncertainty and upheaval, seeds of change took root, nurtured by the unwavering belief that even in darkness, light persists. For Sarah, Emma, Mark, Lisa, Daniel, and countless others drawn into this vortex of events, the journey ahead remained fraught with challenges. But armed with purpose and propelled by passion, they stood ready to forge paths anew, guided by stars of integrity and illuminated by dreams of a brighter tomorrow.